With our conference president speaking, and I can't keep my eyes open. I keep falling asleep. So if you need to stand up, stand up. That's okay. I do it all the time. I can't sit while after I eat and actually stay awake. If you fall asleep, I will not throw anything at you. I won't draw on your face or anything. All right? Unlike I used to do with my friends when we were younger and crazy. Okay, so this training event is an evangelistic-based thing, but I believe that evangelism, discipleship, and church planting are all wrapped into one thing. If you don't do one, you impact the others. They all have to be done. That's what Ellen White says, that's what James White said, that's what a lot of the founders of our church said that God led us as a church to be. Church planting movement, doing outreach, and creating disciples. So, alright, so I want to start out with, you should have gotten this earlier, this little handout. Yeah. I want to just start out with some of the things that are coming up. Seeds in November is at the Beltsville Church. This is an introduction to church planting seminar. We have people coming in from the General Conference, from the NAD. I'll be presenting. We just hired in our conference the Texas Church Planting Coordinator. He's going to be planting a church. He'll be presenting. Tim Matting, who's doing fantastic things in this conference, will be presenting. A lay person who is a tech guy who planted a church less than a year ago. It's got over 80 people coming already. He'll be presenting and teaching how to do multimedia in a church. There's a lot of great things going to be taught at this conference. So it's November 2nd, 3rd. It'll be the afternoon. So I don't have the schedule right in front of me, but it starts in the afternoon. And you go on the conference website and look at the events. You can register for that. You don't have to register to go. But I highly encourage you, if you can make it, to come to this. I know it's a drive, because I just drove it, to get from here to there. Then next year we have another seeds. We'll do this once a year, but we'll change every year. If there happens to be, and I don't know if there is, but if there happens to be anybody who is 100% like, I am ready to plant a church type person in this congregation, this is the best church planting training. Is level 5 leaders. It is 4 different sessions or modules. Each are 2 days long. We've been developing this for 4 years in Brazil, and a couple other countries have been practicing it. And now we brought it to North America this year. It is fantastic. I think it's the best training program I've seen of any denomination on any subject. It is very well thought out, very organized. If anybody says, this is me, I'm ready to plant a church, then let me know and I'll put, can I push it down? Let me know and I'll put you on the list of applicants. That doesn't mean you get to go, just because you say you want to go. I thought when we did our pastors meetings, I thought we might get 7 or 8 pastors apply for this. We had 26. Wow. So I was really surprised. This is a great conference. Okay, so this might be something that your church would be interested in. This is Allies in Mission. This is a revitalization process. What it is your pastor has to come to all 8 sessions. There are 8 sessions over 18 months. And not just your pastor, but your board has to come. Wow. It is high intensive training on how to make your church really, really effective. It teaches you how to do greeting in a way you've never dreamed of doing it. It teaches you how to make strategic plans, how to implement strategic plans in the church setting. My background is business. I had 1,000 employees before I became a pastor. I actually planted restaurants. I was a restaurant planter. And then I had a financial services company after that. So a lot of what you can take from strategic planning, we'll be offering that into that process. So anyway, if you think that you want to be part of a revitalization process, this is a high commitment thing. I can only handle 9 or 10 churches a year, and we had 21 apply already. Wow. So if it's something that this church wants to do, there'll be an application process, and whoever says we are 100% in, we're going to figure a way to make it happen. Even if we have to do 2 of these. I don't want to have anybody left out. But anyway, so talk about it if your church is interested in doing that. That starts next year in 2020 and goes through 2021. And then we have 10 steps to starting healthy new churches. I had 41 people sign up for this already. 41 pastors, sorry. Not people, there'll be a lot more people. This is a training program that I've come up with for church planting on how to make highly effective church plants. So if you're interested in that, it's just a one-day, all-day Sunday program. You can let me know on that. So this is, again, most of the stuff's on this program, or this thing. My contact information's on there, phone number and email. You can talk to your pastor as well and see what he thinks, all those good things, all right? So, I want to start here today with this quote from Ellen White. This is from the Signs of the Times, 1890. She says, "Let each member of the church be a living, active agent for God, both in the church and where? Out of it. We must all be educated to be independent, not helpless and useless." So how many members are supposed to be like this? All. Yeah, everyone. It says each member. This is the role that the church is supposed to have, is to educate members, equip members, encourage members, empower members, send members. This is what we're called to do. And so every member is supposed to be spending time learning. Guess what you're doing right now? You're answering God's call. Right here, right now. This is exactly what we're called to be doing, is learning. And so we're going to be doing some education, some of it. If you have questions, just ask. I'm going to give you question times in 3 different segments also, because I want to have some dialogue with you on this. So anything else? So we're going to be sharing things about harvest-focused planting. How do you plant either the seeds or churches? You can do either one. But harvest, focusing on the harvest. How do you do that? And so there's a handout in your packet. It's a stapled one for most of you. It's called Understanding Your Community. This is what I do when I go into a new community. So I've been a pastor for 22 years now, and I've been a church planter for 22 years now. I've never done anything but church planting because that's just how I felt called to be, and God set it up that way. But so when I go into a community, I'm usually going in with nobody helping me. So like it's called parachute planting. You know, the idea is you drop somebody in a community with no support and see if they can make a church happen. And so that's the kind of churches I start. And I use this process I'm giving you right now that can be used in an existing church as well. This handout you're using, this is what I do. Is I go through those 9 different steps in that handout to understand my community, because I'm not trying to plant a church for Adventists. Did you hear that?
Yeah.
I'm planting an Adventist church, but it's not for Adventists. I'm planting an Adventist church for the community. I want the community who doesn't know Jesus yet to be coming to this church. And so that's why I don't use mother churches. I don't take the culture from an existing church and just transplant it to a new community. We come in and we learn the community. All things to all people so that we might win some. So we learn. We have to know the people. How are we going to be all things to them if we don't even know anything about them, right? So the things that I'm looking for, I want to know what their needs are. You'll see the number 1 thing on there is doing surveys. That's at least 85% of the work is I just do hundreds and hundreds of surveys. And it's very hard survey. It's so tough. It's got 3 questions. And if you do this, don't bring a clipboard. Please don't be that person. You know what happens when you see somebody with a clipboard walking towards you, right? You're like, oh, please, no, don't notice me. No, it's got to be much more conversational. You know, I walk up to people and just talk about something about the weather, and then just say, hey, you know what, by the way, we're starting a brand new church here. It's like nothing anybody's ever seen. We want to start something that's for this community, this one. But we don't know what the needs are. How are we going to help the people, serve the people, if we don't know what they really need? And then I just say, what do you think is the biggest need in this community? And they say, da-da-da-da-da. And then I say, oh, that's interesting. Do you know anybody here that's helping meet that need? And I ask that because there might be somebody already doing it that I could partner with. Or I don't even need to meet that need because it's already being taken care of. And then the last question, I only ask this one, if they seem engaged in the conversation, then I always say, you know, I'd love to partner with you if you're interested. We can meet this need together. How would you like that? And then we're actually making connections immediately and putting people into the team. Now, I will confess, my core team isn't all Adventists. When I build a church, I build it mostly out of non-Adventists. Wow. Even the leadership team. You hear that? Yeah. Right, where's the stones? Any stones yet? All right. So when you go as a missionary to an area, how many Adventists are in that area? Maybe none, right? Yeah, you're the only one. Yeah. And that's what you do, though. You build churches without Adventists. So we need to learn how to build churches like we're called to build them. If there's a bunch of Adventists that want to help, praise God. But if there's none, we're going to do it anyway. We're going to find ways to build churches. So this is the first thing I always do. Know the community. Know what their needs are. Know what things do they put before God. We call them their idols. The idols of the community. You know, one community was college football. You know, Sabbath and college football. What a conflict, because it was such a college football town. Every single house you went to had a flag of the college football, you know, the college there. And so that was their idol. So how do I answer that? Well, I made a huge thing after Sabbath. Every Saturday when there's a college game, we have the VCR recording, back then it was VCRs, recording the game. And after Sabbath, we'd have a big screen, tons of free food, invite everybody to come watch the game after Sabbath, and have a big party, free food. You know, we have to figure out a way they love their football, so how are we going to be able to make it so that they can still watch their football and have a relationship with Christ too? So again, all things to all people so that we can reach. So that's exactly what we did. All right, so this is, again, the survey is just those simple questions. Like I said, those 3 questions are the most important thing. The other things are more high-level stuff. Once you do it enough, you'll learn it. There's some explanation on there. I'll give an example. I was in where was I? Queens, I think, or Brooklyn, somewhere in New York City. And we were at a school. We were meeting in a center right next to a school. And I had done a walk around the block. Did one walk, it took me 10 minutes, and I came back and I gave a report. This is what I would do in this community based on 10 minutes. And using the other steps besides the survey. There was a guy there who said, you know, we pay a consulting firm at the school next door. He spent 6 months working on this project, consulting how this school could serve this community. And he came up with the exact same thing you did in 10 minutes. We can do this. It's not hard if we just start being open, intentional about learning about people. How do we reach people? All right? So, we want every church to connect with your community in a meaningful way. So, what does meaningful mean to you? Yeah, caring? Somebody, is that what you said? Gentle. Okay, what is meaningful? Oh, good words. Compassionate.
Yeah.
Active. What?
Loving.
Productive.
Respectful.
Loving, respectful. Yeah, I mean, there's a lot of things, right? When you say meaningful, it means that's a lot of words in there. And actually every person might have a different definition for themselves of how your church is meaningful. How are you going to be meaningful to that person if you don't know that person? If you don't spend time with that person? Remember what Christ's method alone is, right?
Yeah.
Christ's method alone will bring true success. You have to mingle with the people.
As one desire.
Yeah, one's desires are good. Exactly. All these things. We have to do all of these things. Meet their needs. Understand who they are. Be with them. Before we say, come follow Jesus, right?
Yeah.
These are the things. So the thing I love about that is Ellen White said, he won their confidence.
Yes.
That's what our churches are called to do.
Yes.
Our community should say, the Seventh-day Adventist Church is the most important entity in our community. The people there really make a difference. That's what we're called to do. So connect with your community in a very meaningful way. I can't tell you what that looks like because I don't know this community. I can't say, here's the prescription for Farmville, because you know Farmville, I don't. And you should get out there and learn even more about it. If you're saying you want to start connecting with the college, I've heard several people saying that. I love this idea that you already got a building going on, and that's amazing. You know, I don't know what it's going to end up looking like. But what happens when they come here? Is the goal that they're going to stay in that building forever?
No.
You're going to transition them here?
Yeah.
Can I be honest with you guys?
Yeah.
I love being honest with churches if we want it. And it's not a diss, this is a great church. I love this church. Great church. But if I was a young adult, would I be attracted to this church?
No.
Yeah, go ahead.
I had a few ideas because I was asked to help with that.
Yeah.
And so I reached down into myself, what would I be attracted to here? And what brought me here, what kept me here for how long I've been here. And so I thought I would like to join cooking classes first. Or I would like to help make detoxes, infusers, and certain things that's healthy and it changes your mind gears into yourself.
Nice.
I want to ingest this food, I want to drink these infusers, and I want to bond with these people. And I want to see where this young lady has gained all this information to bring us to this point. So I was actually thinking, sir.
Yeah, but you're different than the people that will be attracted to you because you were raised, right, or assuming. How long have you been in the church?
Well, I've been in this church for 4 years.
How many? Oh, so you're newer. Are you an Adventist?
Yes.
How long have you been an Adventist?
We've been at this for
Oh, yeah.
4 years.
Man, and how, can I ask you how old you are?
I'm 22.
Yeah, boy, pick her brain nonstop. Yeah. So, yeah, when I say, would it be attractive? I think the things that would be attractive to me if I was a young adult here, because I usually start young adult ministry. That's what I usually do. So the things that attract me as a young adult here is friendliness, extremely loving. You guys actually care about each other, love each other. That is awesome. Don't let it be cliquey. I don't think it is, but don't let it be. You know, if the new people come in, don't overwhelm them because they may be introverts, but make sure they know that they are loved and welcomed. There's a training that's, you know, how many people have taken EQ training, you know, emotional, you know, you guys ever heard of it? Sorry?
Emotional intelligence.
Yeah, exactly, emotional intelligence. Some of you may have. So that's a great thing to take as a church because that'll help you learn how to respond to a new person. When a new person walks in, you can tell by a lot of things. A lot of people think this is the body language of void. No, that's not it. That's not it. It's the feet are the first thing you look at, and the eyes the second thing. So if my feet are pointed away from you, it's I want to flee this situation. So I may be talking to you, but my feet are pointed away. That's telling you that I'm trying to move, I'm not comfortable right now. I'm trying to move out of this situation. Now, some cultures, though, the eyes can be good in some cultures. That can be the first one. In other cultures, it can't be.
Right,
Like a lot of Asian cultures will not look you in the eye.
that's right.
And it doesn't mean they're not engaged in
Right.
that conversation. So this is what, emotional intelligence, EQ training does, is it helps people understand how to read people better. Greeters should all be trained. Definitely, greeters should all be trained. So I would suggest that. But when these young adults come in, I think that the lovingness of this church is a big thing. The food, make sure you guys have potluck every week, don't you?
Yeah.
That is genius. The only thing you can do better is add breakfast every week. Now, I'm not joking. My church had breakfast and lunch every week. Every week. We had breakfast and lunch every week. And the breakfast brought in the young people more than the lunch did. Yeah. So, and I'm not saying you have to do that, but it's something to think about, You got great cooks in this place. So, and I like that you're expanding your fellowship hall. I'm telling you, the best way to young people's hearts is through their stomach.
Oh, yeah.
It is so important.
Yep, your mac and cheese kept me for a long time.
Through the years, we have had one or two college students
Yeah,
in the church from time to time,
right.
during the time they were in college.
Very nice, very nice. Yeah.
Yes, it was very nice.
Yeah. So now the biggest thing about college ministry is this. College ministry is a ministry, it's not a church.
Right.
You cannot build a church on college students. It
Right.
doesn't work.
Right.
Because they keep moving.
Yeah.
So like in Seattle, we had at University of Washington, massive university. It was the #1 medical school when we were there. And I can't remember how many students. There were like 80,000 students at this university, huge campus. We knew even on a campus that size, you could not build a church there. We had churches outside of it that were feeding ministries inside of it. Work with the children. They're like children to me now because my kids are that age. But work with these young people, invest in them, train them, and know you're building missionaries.
Yes.
Train them how to plant churches like you were doing, where they go or they won't go again. That's the biggest mistake we make with young adult ministries. If we don't train them how to plant churches that are effective reaching young people, they're going to move to a town that has nothing like that, and they will just stop with the church. Yes.
When I was working at one of the colleges up here, it actually was very helpful to this cause right here.
Yeah.
God is good. The only church they had on that campus was a Presbyterian church.
Yes.
And so a lot of new people that get there, they're like, what? This is a requirement. They have to go there. They have to, if they don't, I think that it takes certain grades off of them.
Right.
And so they were forced to go to this church. But if we open ourselves to those people that are like, man, I don't want to go at all, and it turns them away from churches, period, because they're like, I can't do this. So opening ourselves and being available to those students right there is very helpful for that.
So I'm going to be the honest person again here. The Adventist church is getting old.
Yes.
And one of the reasons is because we don't let the young adults take over. We give them lip service and leadership. So when I plant a church, one of the rules I have is no one over 35 can be on the church board. Did you hear that? Now, of course, I'm not saying you do that to an existing church. This is when I planted churches for young adults. But we get quite a few people who are older that come in, they're excited about the ministry we're doing, and we tell them, you are here to support the next generation. You are here to mentor them so that they can lead the church. If we just continue to let the Adventist church get older and older and older, eventually it'll be like the Presbyterians who are dying off, the Methodists who are dying off. If it wasn't for the immigrant work that we have in the Adventist church, the Adventist church would actually be in North America be on a downhill slide right now. The immigrants coming in are the ones that are actually helping us raise up a little bit. And you can see it in all of our churches. The churches are turning into immigrant churches. Because the North Americans are not interested in church as we're doing it today. They're just not interested in it. It's fewer and fewer want to be part of the church as we're doing it today, which I don't think is a bad thing. Because the church as we're doing it today is not what God called us to do. Yes.
And an existing church like ours, and it's not just happening here, but I know other Adventist churches, it seems like it's one or two people, even if the church is loving, that is so staunch about what a person should be like, that when young people come with children or whatever, they are harsh, and it turns the people away.
You know what I call those people? Wolves. That's not an Adventist. That is an emissary of Satan.
But they think that they're
I know.
ideal.
But you don't see Christ doing that.
No.
You don't see Christ treating people like that. No. When people attack instead of love, there's something wrong with that. And they need to be healed or sent on their way.
Okay.
Yeah.
Thank you.
Seriously.
Thank you.
I've kicked many people out of church because they are wolves and will not convert to sheep. They want to attack people. And this is what I say in my church. I say it in front of my churches all the time. I don't visit unless you're dying, because the Bible says my job is to equip the saints to do ministry. So if I'm visiting, it's because I'm training somebody to visit. Because I believe fully that the leadership of a church is the local people.
Yeah.
It is not a pastor. Pastors, our job is to equip you to do the work. That's exactly what the Bible says in Ephesians chapter 4. So, I won't visit you unless you do one thing. I can visit you really quick. If you attack new people coming in my church, I will come and visit you so fast. And it will not be the kind of visit you were hoping for. And I warn the saints, don't be that person. Just because you have a set idea and everybody needs to be just like you, all I have to do is show you the Bible. It's not a reality. It's not a reality. The church manual is not a hammer. The church manual was written a long time ago for a different culture, and it says right in the church manual that you don't have to follow the church manual. As long as you vote in a business meeting how you want to do things, you can do it a different way. It was always intended to help the churches that were new, that didn't know what was going on. It wasn't supposed to be the Bible guidebook. It's not a holy book. It's just a helpful tool. But some people think, oh, no, the thing said we have to do children's story, then we got to do this, then we got to can't change anything. That's ridiculous. It's not what it was written for at all. So, anyway, questions on the very first part. I told you I was going to have 3 sections of questions. We've kind of been doing some questions. Yes?
Okay. I just want to be clear.
Please.
You know how you have some Christians and they say Jesus unchanging hand and things like that. So is it okay?
I've never heard that saying.
No. We were always in it, so we would hear that, and we had a pastor actually say to us when we would try to bring in things for the young people, it's God's unchanging hand, so we can't bring in new things.
Then ask him, why is he wearing a robe?
He had a robe. He didn't.
No, but he should be wearing like the robe that Jesus wore and sandals on his feet.
Yeah.
I mean, you changed. Jesus didn't look like that.
Right, that's true.
And is he a carpenter? Is your guy a carpenter? Because, I mean, if you have to be just like Jesus, unchanging God, you better be a fisherman and your dad better be a carpenter. I mean, that's ridiculous.
Yeah.
It doesn't make any
So
sense.
it ran us out, because we didn't know how to get with the older people in there.
Yeah, no,
There's a lot of rules.
that's basically saying, I want to do things my way, and I'll figure out how to make sure you don't get to change anything.
Okay.
It's a cop-out. That's not a biblical thing. The disciples all ministered differently, than each other. You read things from Peter and Paul and James and these great leaders. They were tremendously different in the way they approached things. So yeah, that's not biblical at all. Yeah, so we're actually going to come to a quote that talks about that in a second anyway. So yeah, good question. Any other questions? Ready to go on then? All right, let's continue. So, how do we impact our communities is the question that most people have. How do we actually make this happen? And, I'm sorry?
Stand out. Make yourself stand out.
Well, yeah, that could be a way. There's a lot of ways, yeah, exactly. Let me share this quote. So I'm going to go through this with you line by line. It says, let every worker in the master's vineyard, how many workers?
Every.
Who's that? Who's the workers?
Us.
Oh, that's us. That's right. Yeah. If we are saved, then we are the workers in the master vineyard. So this is talking to all of us. What are we supposed to do?
Study, plan, devise methods.
How many churches are teaching their people to study, plan, and devise methods to reach the people where we are?
Where they are.
Oh, what did it say? Oh, where they are.
Yeah.
No, that's not what it says. It can't mean that because we have revelation seminars so that they can come where we are, and stop smoking so they can come where we are, and cooking so they can come where we are. That's how we do things normally. Now, this church isn't like that. You guys are bringing something to the college. That is really cool. I don't see this very often. That's very cool. So what are we supposed to do, though, again? We're supposed to study, plan, and devise methods to reach the people where they are. I don't want to see your hands. I don't want to hear you verbally answer, but I just want you to ask yourself, when's the last time you were studying, planning, and devising methods, designing these methods to reach the people where they are? That's not a normal thing that we do, but that's what we're called to do. And how many of us are called to do that again?
Every worker.
Every worker. This is what a church is for. This is what we're doing right now, and what your pastor invited me to do. This is what church is for, is to train the saints to go. Now, are you ready to freak out? Get ready, here we go. This church is not for you.
Amen.
This church is not your church. Biblically, it's not. You are the church.
Amen.
You are the body of Christ.
Right.
You are the bricks that build the holy temple. You are the pieces that God puts together to make the woman, the pure woman, the church. You are the church. Jesus is the head of the church. This is just a place to sit down. When you go home, the church goes home. When you go to work, the church goes to work. This is not for you. Jesus didn't come to serve himself. And now we're his body, so what are we supposed to do? Be like Jesus, right?
Yeah.
This church is not here to serve you. You're already saved. You're already saved. Praise God. Now it's time for you to do the thing that the body does. Be the church for what it's really meant to be. This church is for those who don't know Jesus. We call it the next person culture. Every church is designed for the next person in the community that walks in the door who doesn't know Jesus. What does that look like then? It's totally different than the average Adventist church. I come up to you, you're walking in, you're a visitor, and I go, hey, happy Sabbath. Oh.
How are you today?
Exactly, yeah. Because when you say happy Sabbath, what are you saying? Yeah, you're not one of us. There's an insider's language. Happy Sabbath. I mean, that's weird if you don't know what that means.
Yeah.
Yeah. Hey, great to see you today. How are you doing? Like a normal person would greet people. Now, if you want to greet each other with a happy Sabbath, that's okay. You know each other. You're Adventists. But I actually don't encourage my church to do that because you forget and keep doing it to visitors too because you're doing it so many times. Yes.
I like to say, God bless you.
Yeah.
God bless you.
Amen.
Good
Yeah.
knowledge.
Perfect. Yeah, they know they're coming to church. They know God's here. They're not surprised by that.
No, we're talking about reading plan.
Yeah.
God bless you.
You can say that if you want. You can say, welcome, so glad you're here, or whatever you want.
That's more, that's more.
Now, I'm not going to stop with the greeters, okay? Because this church does the same thing that so many Adventist churches do. I love this church, but there's a few things, if you want my opinion, I would tweak. When I was a kid, my dad was raised Catholic, didn't go to church very often, but once in a while we'd go to Mass. And I remember the first time I went to Mass, I was, I don't know, maybe 8 or 9. And this is what I remember about the service. Everybody knew when to kneel, and they kneeled. They all said this prayer together that I had no idea where this was coming from. They all knew it. They all started singing songs together that they all knew. And I felt like a total outsider.
Yes.
They stood up, they sat down. They stood up, they kneeled down. They stood up, they sat down. They sat down, they kneeled down. And I'm like, you know, the Adventist church is a lot more like the Catholic church than we want to admit. I'm serious. We have songs. You guys have a projector. If you want to sing songs together, put it on the screen. Let people know what they're singing so they're not confused. We shouldn't just be singing an after prayer song that we all know. And put it on a screen so that people know what's going on. Tell them what's happening. Explain the process. We went out as far as we would put Bibles in our chairs. We didn't have pews, we had chairs. They were all the exact same Bible, and I'd say, we're going to look at Matthew such and such a page, such and such a chapter. In the book, Bible's in front of you, that's found on page 843. Because not everybody knows how to read the Bible. They don't know where that's at. And so if they want to start learning how to use the Bible, we gave them page numbers. Like a normal person would do when you're opening a book, right? So we've got to remember that everything we do can either make them feel like insiders or outsiders. And it's our job, since the church is for them, not for us, to change the culture to fit their needs. So that when they come in, these young adults that you're going to start reaching, these people in the community that you're going to start making connections with, when they come in, they're going to feel loved, not like they're an outsider. It's very, very important. And I know this church will do it. I mean, usually I'm like, come on, guys, can you get this? I don't have to say that in this church. I know you guys care. I can see it. You guys care about people. I know it's going to be uncomfortable because for many of us, we've been Adventists for decades, and we've been doing it the same way forever. But that's because we think the church is for us. And once we get it into our noggins that the church is for them, we are the church serving them, then we relax and say, let's serve. That's why I could have somebody spinning discs for special music in my church. Because I knew I was helping him grow closer to Christ.
Amen.
And it made an Adventist mad. I mean, I'm glad we stopped them, but frankly, I don't care. The Adventists can be mad. They're saved. Let them be mad and go to another church. My job is to help people find Jesus, to seek and save the lost. And I will leave the 99 behind to help find that one. Because the 99 are safe already. They know Jesus. I want them to grow. I'm going to do things like this that help them grow. You know, the only time that I use Ellen White is when I'm talking in training. When I'm preaching in my church, I never use Ellen White. Two reasons why. One, they're going to look up Ellen White. Who's Ellen White?
Yeah.
And you don't want to look up Ellen White if you don't know what's going on. There's a lot of bad websites out there.
Yeah.
Ellen White. A bunch of baloney out there.
Yeah.
And it comes up quick on that search engine. Two, Ellen White says, don't use her stuff in sermons.
Yeah.
Yes.
Can I just admit something?
Yeah.
I remember when I first came here and I wore jewelry and loud hair, and, you know, and everybody let me be me. And
Praise
I went to
God.
my
Thank
believers
God.
class, and so I learned my walk, what God
Yes.
wanted for me. And, you know, I sang contemporary gospel, you know, and they were patient, like, okay, she's gonna know.
No, we still love contemporary.
Oh, we still love contemporary.
Yeah.
Okay, I like to sing, and, you know, I just think of my patient walk with my family, and I love this conversation to this day. It's just, I
Praise
think
God.
it's
Praise
awesome.
God.
Yeah.
Yes, sir.
No,
I
we still
know
love
that one of the sentences said we should arrest the attention.
We're going to get there. So you're jumping ahead of me. You're so fast. You're so good. All right, so let's stay here, okay? So to reach the people where they are. This means, this goes back to what we talked about this morning already. We need to know the people to be able to reach them where they are. You need to speak their language, understand their culture, figure out how to move into their world. Love them, care for them, meet their needs, help them build confidence in what we're doing, then introduce them to Jesus Christ. It is a process. It takes time. It's not an instantaneous thing. We think we can mail out flyers or Bible study cards or pass out great controversy, and that's the way to do it. That's not Christ's method.
No.
That is Adventist method.
Yeah.
All right? So what does it say? She goes on to say, for some churches, this is a big deal. I don't think you guys have a problem with this. We must do something out of the common course of things. We must arrest the attention. Wait a minute. It means we have to change. We can't just keep doing the same thing we've always done. The Adventist Church loves to do rotary dialed phone stuff in a cell phone age. Remember that?
I remember where you had to pick up the phone and go,
Yeah, exactly.
hello,
Exactly.
operator, give me something.
Yeah.
Another.
And our churches say, oh, that worked this one time and 20 years ago. So we got to keep doing it. That ministry was important to us 20 years ago. So we got to keep doing it. If it's not effective in today's context, celebrate it and put it to bed.
Yeah.
And go to the next thing that works right. And it's tough because it might be your ministry they're putting to bed. But you got to remember, this church is not for you. You are the church. You're doing the best you can for who the church is for. The next generation, the unbelievers, the lost, anybody who comes in this door. We have to be that church. So that means we need to do things out of the common course of things. We must arrest the attention. I hear people all the time say, oh, we don't need to be an entertaining church. Why not? Why not? That makes no sense. If you're doing entertainment for amusement, that's wrong. But if you're doing entertainment so that people are actually attracted to the gospel, then let's be entertaining.
Yeah.
Yes.
So does that make, if you decide to sing any songs, so if it's rap or
Well, I don't know about you. You're an Adventist. I don't care what you sing.
but some young people like to do different things with music, so.
Well, let them do. I don't know. I mean, this is not my church. I can't make those decisions. You're the body of Christ in this community. You got to decide what this community needs. And if it's not comfortable, so what? Get over it. This church is not for you. Yes.
We've had violins, horns, flutes, guitars, all kinds of musical instruments in here that people have brought in when they come into the church.
Good, good. Those are all mostly old school instruments now, but that's good. Yeah.
We had gospel groups too.
Yes, we have, yeah.
Yeah, it depends on the community. I don't know this community. Some communities need a high church feel, like, like classical feel. That's what attracts people in certain communities. Other communities need a much more contemporary swing. Some people need a country music style, have a little more of the twang feel to it. It's whatever reaches the community, and it's not what you like. Because listen, I always pray to God, Lord, I want to serve this community however it wants to be served. But please don't let it be a country music community. If it was, I would make sure that we had much more of a Southern gospel feel. That Southern music feel, because the church isn't for me. Even though I can't stand country music, I know that it's not for me. I want to reach the community, so I got to put myself out of the equation and find out, what do they need? What is going to speak to them? What will arrest the attention?
Amen. Thank you.
This is Ellen White speaking, so if you are mad at me, you're actually mad at Ellen White. Right? This is her stuff. Okay, then she goes on. We must be deadly in earnest. Why did she say that?
Because people spot fake.
Yeah. Speaking home here.
Yeah.
Telling the truth.
Not only that, she's just saying, listen, this is serious stuff.
Yeah.
Yes.
What she just said is serious.
Yes.
And so she's adding that so you make sure you know this is serious.
Right.
We cannot just ignore this. This is one of the most powerful quotes Ellen White has ever written. We must be deadly in earnest. Why? We are on the very verge of times of trouble and perplexities that are scarcely dreamed of. My brothers and sisters, right now, we can do almost anything we want to reach people. But the time is coming soon where that's not going to happen.
Amen.
We've seen how government, even now, is changing rapidly before our very eyes.
Yes.
There's becoming this huge separation, and these battle lines are drawing. It's not going to take much to push religion into that mix. Where if you don't do things the way one group wants you to do it, you'll be censored, then ostracized, then jailed, then killed. We know it's coming, yes.
If you're not looking at world news now, you're far behind times, because that is the argument right now in Congress. Our forefathers, they are saying, these are not religious people talking, these are politicians that our forefathers said we were trying to separate church and state. And they're talking about that is not,
I know.
it is in trouble right now.
No, they're openly saying that our forefathers were wrong of this country for establishing religious liberty. They're openly saying it now.
Yes.
I mean, it is just shocking. 5 years ago, if you would have told me the governments would have been saying stuff like this, I'd have been, you're crazy. How fast things change is incredible. Yes?
You don't see us putting more than ordinary amount of money in advertisement in order to arrest attention. For instance, if I met somebody out there on a Saturday evening and I say, Happy Sabbath, that would be somewhat provocative.
Could be.
But it would
If you're doing it out there, yeah.
I draw the person's attention that the question is clear,
Yeah.
strange, so it doesn't ordinarily draw attention.
It could. I mean, you could draw attention negatively if you want. I mean, I don't know if that's helpful. The way that we should do it is Christ found your love, right? Mingle with the people as one who desire their good, right? Meet their needs. Do all these things so that they will build confidence in us. Then say, come follow Jesus. If we start with the religious stuff first, always, now there's time for it. But if we start with religious stuff,
Yes.
especially in this culture, it doesn't work very well.
Yeah.
So, so much money anymore in distributing signs of the times and steps of the price and.
I do that with people I developed a relationship with.
Yeah.
I don't do it with strangers. Now, it works sometimes. I'm not saying don't do those things ever. But if that's your only strategy, it's the lazy Adventist way of doing ministry.
Yeah.
It's not Christ's way of doing ministry. It can help, though. You never know. I'm an Adventist because somebody mailed my grandmother a flyer for an evangelistic series, and for some reason, even though it was on a totally different part of the city, like 20 miles away, she called my mom and said, hey, I'm thinking about going to this evangelistic series in this town over here. And my mom said, oh, that's a weird sounding church. They go to church on Saturday. I'm going to go check those weirdos out. And we went. But it was just, so sometimes it works, but it's working less and less in these days.
Yeah.
The best way is to build relationships. Like the last church I planted, it was a brand new cold start, no churches helping us. We had 18 core team members. Did an evangelistic series 4 months after we launched. We doubled the size of the church. Then another 6 months, we doubled the size of the church. We kept doubling the size of the church. That's because we were building relationships before we did evangelism. Of those 18 that we baptized, 16 were people we already knew, we were developing relationships with. 2 came from flyers. I just did an evangelistic series in Stafford. They didn't do the work. I love that church, but they didn't do enough work beforehand. So they only got 2 Bible study interests out of that. We mailed out, 10,000 flyers. Flyers are just not working anymore. Because think about what you get in your mail every day.
Yeah.
I'm literally taking this pile and saying, junk, I don't even read it. It looks like a flyer. Trash, 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 trash. I don't even read it now. So it's just working far less effective than it used to. The best way to reach people for Jesus is to get to know them. You've got to. You've got to be their friend. Yeah, good. All right, let's go on. So do we have a clue how to reach the various types of people in our communities? So I want to share with you another handout here. This handout here says discipleship with nudge evangelism. This here is called the modified Ingalls scale of spirituality, but you don't have to memorize the name. But basically what this is, this slide messed up. It's better on here to look on here because the slide messed up. But what it is it's a spirituality scale. Every single person in the world falls on that scale. You do, I do, everybody does. -10, look on this, not on the screen, because I don't know why it's slipped over. -10 is what? Satan. Is Satan an atheist?
No.
No. Satan believes in God. These are people that hate God. There are people like this, not a lot, but there are some people like this. They actively hate God, wish God was dead and destroyed. I've met some, I remember when I was younger, I met a group of people that had implanted fangs, and they went around singing and dancing. They're so glad that the devil killed Jesus on the cross. There's another friend of mine who was on the plane. Guy was praying, and he asked him, he said, hey, Pastor, what are you praying for? He said, well, I'm actually in the Church of Satan, and I'm praying for the pastors in my community that they will have affairs and their family will be destroyed, so their churches will be destroyed. So there are people like that, -10, they hate God, hate his people, wish both were destroyed. -8 is more of an atheist. These are people who promote atheism. They're strong atheists, believe there is no God, and anybody who is religious is a plight in the world. Then there's agnostics like -6. Then you get somebody who gets to more like -4. There may be a God. They're not sure, but they're not really connected. They don't really believe the Bible has much for them. When you get to like -1, these are people who believe in Jesus. They think that these things hold some value to them. They just haven't taken that step. They're almost there. They just haven't said yes to Christ. 0 is where people say yes to Jesus. accept him as their Savior, and that's when they usually are baptized. And so everything on this side of the zero, we call it left of the cross. These are people who have not accepted Jesus in their life. This right of the cross, these are people who have. So positive 10 is what?
Christ.
Jesus, okay. So how many people here are at positive 10 yet? You love no. Are you a 10?
No, we are not.
Yeah, Zach, I'm asking, are you a 10? So the goal is to grow towards Jesus. A positive 1 is a babe in Christ. They're usually a new baptized person. They're just getting to know Jesus. They haven't let their Christianity really impact their life yet. It doesn't have to be a baby in Christ. I know people who've been Adventists for 30 years that are positive. But not a lot. There are a few. Then you go on. People start getting involved in ministry. They start giving of their time, giving of their tithes, offerings. Starting to, it's changing who they are as a person. It's impacting the decisions they make every day. They start sharing their faith. They start leading ministries. They start leading people to Christ. As they're growing, you go closer and closer to positive 10. The goal here is, no matter where somebody falls on the scale, the goal is to move them towards Jesus. If they're a negative 7, move them towards Jesus. If they're a positive 7, move them towards Jesus. But it doesn't happen overnight. That's why we call this discipleship with nudge evangelism. Our goal is to learn how to move people one step at a time. If they're negative 4, I'm not trying to move them to 0 overnight. My goal is to help them grow into a negative 3. So look at negative 4. It says there may be a God that has not really connected in any way, not against Christians, but also has little desire to connect with them. How do I get them to say number 3? May claim to be religious, finds the stories of faith interesting, may have Christian friends, open to testimony about faith in a friend's life. The best way to impact anybody who's negative 4 or lower is to be their friend. That's the best thing, because I guarantee you start making a friend with an agnostic, don't ever worry about when you're going to talk to them about Jesus. Don't worry about it. Just be a true servant friend. Somebody who really loves them and helps them. Then I guarantee God will put something in their life that makes them turn to you. It happens every time. Let them have confidence in your friendship. Then they will come and talk to you about Jesus. Every single time it happens. You don't have to come up with some snazzy Bible study figuring out how am I going to convince them that God is real. You don't have to do that. Be a great friend, and something will happen. They'll have a tragedy. They'll have a life change. They'll have a big decision. Something's going to happen. And they're going to know you're a Christian. And they're going to come to you and ask you questions. Yes, ma'am. You had a question?
Oh, no, I'm sorry.
Okay. All right. So, once you get to become a Christian, though, it doesn't stop, right?
No.
So a church's job is to move people always towards Jesus. Don't stop once they're baptized. Continue to help people grow and grow and grow and flourish, right? This is very important. This changed my entire ministry. This one church changed how I do everything in ministry. It changes how I train people. When I'm training like small group leaders, I train them how to know every one of these steps. How do you make a -6 a -5? How do you make a +3 a +4? We train them intensely on this because most of our discipleship and growth happens in small groups in my churches. Yeah.
How do you deal with people if they look at us being Christian-like as being enabling?
Enabling what?
Whatever the person's needs are.
You don't worry about what they think. You just be a friend. You don't care. All they need to see is what Christianity means to you in real, not words, but in your real life.
And how it looks.
Yeah, when they see you as a living witness, that's what will change their hearts. Nothing you can say, like, you know, I was talking to an atheist, I don't know, about a month ago. We had a 3-hour conversation. He knew he wasn't going to change. I knew I wasn't going to change. But we're both very logic-based people, and we just wanted to do it for fun. We just talked. You know, this is where I'm coming from. This is where he's coming from. But we have a great relationship. I knew that wasn't going to change his heart. He knew it wasn't going to change my heart. But we were also building a relationship. That's what's going to change his heart. But I usually don't do that. I just did that because he's one of those few people that he understands. He's a very high thinker and wants to talk on a really high level. He doesn't have a lot of people that know the things I know as pastor. So, but usually you don't have to convince anybody. Let them think what they want. Who cares what they think? Let them see in you, you have a joy that they've never experienced. You have a peace that goes beyond understanding. You are free. You are free indeed. The things of this world does not weigh you down because you have a home in a place. And when they see that living in you, they're going to start saying, dang, I want that. Because every time there's a crisis in my life, I'm like, oh, my world's over. This is nothing. Oh, man. And they see the crisis in your life, and you're just, I mean, it's not easy dealing with crisis. But when you have Jesus, you react different. It's just a different reaction. See, you and then you.
Yeah,
And then,
what I gather from what you're saying with these steps is that we're remembering that we can't change anybody, not even ourselves, that we are allowing the Holy Spirit to work and listening to Him and letting Him lead and guide us.
Yeah.
Even you talking to the person you're just describing, we have no idea what will happen from that. And we're trusting that God is in control, and we just showing the people how much we trust and love the God that has done so much for us.
yeah, you don't know what's going on in people's lives. You're not a mind reader. You have no idea. I've seen people go from -8 to 0, but it's really rare. It is really rare. You don't usually just talk an atheist out of being atheist.
No.
Now, honestly, most atheists aren't really atheists. They're really agnostic.
True.
They tell you they're atheists, but they're really agnostic.
True.
But the same thing, I do the same thing with atheists and agnostics, just different. I've got a hand here,